The morning started like any other Tuesday in my perfectly ordinary life. I was Nick Griffin, 38 years old, project manager at TechFlow Solutions, married to the ambitious Vanessa for 6 years. We lived in a decent house in Brookfield Heights, where the lawns were always trimmed and the neighbors minded their own business. I should have known something was off when my wife's brother Marcus showed up at our kitchen table at 7 in the morning, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my monthly salary. Marcus had always been insufferable, but lately he'd been strutting around like he owned the world. 2 days ago, he'd been promoted to head of operations at Vanessa's company, Data Vault Industries, where she worked as a senior analyst. "Morning, Marcus." I mumbled, pouring coffee into my travel mug. My hands were still shaky from staying up late, working on quarterly reports. "It's Mr. Patterson now, Nick," he said without looking up from his phone. "I think we need to establish some professional boundaries." I nearly choked on my coffee, and professional boundaries were family. Exactly why this is important. Vanessa's career depends on maintaining proper workplace relationships. The guy was unbelievable. I grabbed my mug and headed toward the door, but my elbow caught the edge of the counter. Coffee splashed everywhere, including all over Marcus's pristine gray suit. "Jesus Christ," he screamed, jumping up. "Do you know how expensive this suit is? It's Italian wool, custom tailored." "Sorry, man. I'll pay for the cleaning." "You're fired," he shouted, his face turning red. "Pack your desk today. Security will escort you out." I stared at him. "You can't fire me. You don't even work at my company. I have connections everywhere in this industry. You're done, Nick. Done." Vanessa walked into the kitchen, took one look at the scene, and sided with her brother without asking what happened. That should have been my first real warning. 20 minutes later, I was sitting in the lobby of the Marriott downtown, waiting for my scheduled meeting with Robert Chen, the investor who'd been courting our company for months. I'd been working on this deal for 6 months, and today was supposed to be the final presentation. "Ready for our meeting?" Chen asked, approaching with his usual confident smile. I managed a weak grin. "Actually, there's been a complication. I was just fired." Chen's eyebrows shot up. "Fired? By whom?" "My wife's brother. He apparently has connections." Chen pulled out his phone and showed me a photo. "Is this the guy who fired you?" The picture showed Marcus at some industry conference, shaking hands with a group of executives. But Chen was pointing to someone else in the background, a man I didn't recognize. "That's Marcus Patterson," I said, pointing to my brother-in-law. Chen laughed, actually laughed. "Patterson? That little weasel couldn't fire a BB tool. The man I'm pointing to is David Morrison, CEO of TechFlow Solutions. He's been trying to get a meeting with me for 2 years. Looks like I finally have some leverage." My phone buzzed with a text from my boss. "Nick, ignore whatever Marcus Patterson told you. See you at the office. Jim." Chen was already dialing. "David, Robert Chen, I have an interesting proposition for you regarding one of your employees." The next few days were a whirlwind. Not only did I keep my job, but Chen's investment deal went through with me as the lead liaison. Suddenly, I was the golden boy at TechFlow, while Marcus was left explaining to his new bosses why he'd tried to interfere with a multi-million-dollar deal. But something else was bothering me. Vanessa had been acting strange, stranger than usual. She was working late every night, taking calls in the other room, and had suddenly developed an interest in going to the gym at odd hours. "You're being paranoid," my friend Mike told me over beers at O'Malley's, our usual dive bar. Mike was a construction foreman, built like a linebacker, and had known me since college. "Vanessa's always been career-focused." "This is different," I said. "She barely talks to me anymore. And when she does, it's like she's reading from a script. Maybe she's stressed about the Marcus thing. That had to be embarrassing for her." I wanted to believe that, but my gut told me otherwise. That weekend, I decided to do some digging. Not anything crazy, just paying attention to details I'd been ignoring. Saturday morning, Vanessa announced she was going shopping with her friend Kelly. But when I drove past the mall later, her car wasn't there. I tried calling, and she said they'd decided to go to a different location. Fair enough. Sunday, she claimed to be at the gym, but when I stopped by to bring her a protein shake, the desk clerk said she hadn't checked in that day. When I asked Vanessa about it, she said she'd gone to a different branch. Monday evening, I came home early and found a wine glass in the sink. We didn't drink wine on weekdays. When I asked about it, Vanessa said she'd had a headache and thought wine might help. None of these things were damning evidence, but together they painted a picture I didn't want to see. Tuesday night, I pretended to leave for a late meeting, but parked around the corner and walked back. Through the kitchen window, I saw Vanessa on the phone, pacing and laughing in a way she hadn't laughed with me in months. I know, she was saying. He's so clueless. He actually believed the gym story. My blood went cold. Thursday works perfectly. He has that client dinner, so we'll have the whole evening. Yes, I've been thinking about what you said. Maybe it is time to make some changes. I backed away from the window, my heart pounding. 6 years of marriage, and this was how it ended? With my wife planning secret meetings while mocking my trust? But I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. If Vanessa thought I was clueless, I'd use that to my advantage. The next morning, I called in sick and followed Vanessa to work. She drove to Datavault Industries as usual, but instead of going to her floor, she went to the executive level. I watched from the parking garage as she met with a man I'd never seen before. Tall, expensive suit. The kind of guy who looked like he'd never worked a real job in his life. They talked for a few minutes in the lobby, standing closer than colleagues should. When he touched her arm, she didn't pull away. I took photos with my phone. Not for any legal reason, just to confirm what I was seeing was real. That afternoon, I drove to Datavault and waited in the parking lot. At 5:30, Vanessa and the mystery man walked out together. They got into his BMW, a newer model than anything we could afford, and drove to a restaurant across town. I followed at a distance and watched them through the window. They were holding hands across the table. She was wearing the red dress she'd bought for our anniversary but claimed was too fancy to wear with me. My phone buzzed with a text from Vanessa. Working late tonight, don't wait up, love you. Love me? Right. I drove home and did something I'd never done before. I searched through Vanessa's things. Not her phone or computer, which she kept password protected, but the physical evidence she might have overlooked. In her jewelry box, I found a receipt from Victoria's Secret for items I'd never seen her wear. In her coat pocket, there was a business card. Elliot Reeves, Senior Vice President, Strategic Development, Datavault Industries. Elliot Reeves. So that was his name. I looked him up online. 35 years old, divorced, MBA from Wharton. His LinkedIn profile was full of corporate buzzwords and photos of him at industry conferences. In several pictures, I could see Vanessa in the background. How long had this been going on? I made copies of everything and put the originals back exactly where I'd found them. If Vanessa wanted to play games, I'd play along. But I was going to win. Thursday evening, I told Vanessa I had a client dinner and would be out late. She tried to hide her excitement, but I could see it in her eyes. Instead of going to dinner, I parked across the street from our house and waited. At 7:15, Elliot's BMW pulled into my driveway. I watched Elliot walk up to my front door like he owned the place. Vanessa answered before he could knock, wearing a black dress I'd never seen before. They kissed on the doorstep, my doorstep, before going inside. For 2 hours, I sat in my car, watching the lights in my house, knowing what was happening in my bedroom. The rage built slowly like a pressure cooker heating up. At 9:30, Elliot came outside to move his car. He was wearing one of my shirts. That's when I snapped. I got out of my car and walked across the street. Elliot was fumbling with his keys, probably thinking about how clever they'd been. Nice shirt, I said. He spun around, his face going white. Nick, I thought you were at dinner? Yeah, that was the plan. I stepped closer. But the client canceled. Funny how things work out. Elliot started backing toward the house. Look, this isn't what it looks like. It looks like you're wearing my shirt and parking in my driveway after spending 2 hours in my house with my wife. What exactly should it look like? We were just talking. About what? The thread count on my sheets? Elliot's face flushed red. You don't understand. Vanessa and I have a connection. We work together. We understand each other's ambitions. Ambitions, I laughed. Is that what we're calling it now? She deserves better than this, Elliot said, gesturing at our modest house. She deserves someone who can match her potential. Someone like you. Someone who isn't stuck in middle management at a second-tier company. That hit a nerve. You know what? You're right. Vanessa does deserve better. She deserves someone honest. Someone who doesn't sneak around like a coward. Elliot straightened up, trying to look intimidating. Maybe we should discuss this like adults. Adults? You want to be an adult? Then let's go inside and have an adult conversation with my wife. The front door opened, and Vanessa appeared. She was wearing a robe now, my robe. Nick, she said, trying to sound surprised. You're home early. Client canceled, I said, not taking my eyes off Elliot. But it looks like you two had your own meeting. Vanessa's composure cracked slightly. Elliot just stopped by to discuss a work project. In your bathrobe? I spilled wine on my dress. Funny. I didn't see any wine stains when Elliot came outside wearing my shirt. Elliot stepped forward. Look, Nick, this is complicated. No, it's really not. You're sleeping with my wife. That's about as simple as it gets. It's not just about love, Elliot said. Vanessa and I are planning a future together. The words hit me like a physical blow. A future? Vanessa finally found her voice. Nick, I wanted to tell you, but what? You thought it would be more fun to humiliate me first? It's not about humiliation, it's about growth. Elliot understands my career goals. And I don't. You're content with mediocrity, she said. Yeah, and there was no kindness in her voice anymore. Elliot pushes me to be better. I looked at both of them standing there, Elliot in my shirt, Vanessa in my robe, both of them looking at me like I was the problem. You know what? I said. You're absolutely right. I have been mediocre, especially when it comes to choosing who to trust. I turned and walked back to my car. Behind me, I heard Vanessa call my name, but I didn't stop. I drove to O'Malley's and found Mike at his usual spot at the bar. He took one look at my face and ordered me a double whiskey. Vanessa? He asked. Vanessa, I confirmed. I told him everything, the lies, the secret meetings, Elliot wearing my clothes. Mike listened without interrupting, his face getting darker with each detail. What are you going to do? He asked when I finished. I don't know. Divorce, I guess. Get a lawyer, split everything up, move on. That's it? What else is there? Mike leaned closer. They humiliated you, Nick. In your own house, wearing your clothes, lying to your face. You're just going to let them walk away? What choice do I have? You could fight back. How? Beat up Elliot? Key his car? That's not who I am. I'm not talking about violence. I'm talking about justice, making them face consequences for their actions. I stared into my whiskey. Like what? Like making sure everyone knows what kind of people they really are. Like making sure their little love story doesn't have the happy ending they're planning. You're talking about revenge. I'm talking about the truth. Sometimes the truth hurts. I thought about Elliot's smug face, about Vanessa calling me mediocre, about the way they'd looked at me like I was an inconvenience in their perfect plan. What did you have in mind? Mike smiled. Let me make some calls. The next morning, I went to work like nothing had happened. I didn't mention the confrontation to anyone. Didn't act angry or upset. If Vanessa wanted to play the deception game, I'd show her how it was really done. At lunch, Mike called with information. Elliot Reeves, he said, divorced 2 years ago. His ex-wife took him for everything because she caught him cheating with his assistant. He's been living in a rented condo and driving a leased BMW, all flash, no substance. How did you find all this out? My cousin Danny works in commercial real estate. He knows everyone's financial situation. Elliot's been trying to buy a house for months, but his credit is shot from the divorce. What about Data Vault? That's where it gets interesting. Elliot's been promising investors that he's going to land a major client, someone who could triple their revenue. But Danny heard from a friend in the industry that Elliot's been lying about his connections. He's basically one failed quarter away from being fired. This was useful information, but I needed more. That evening, I went home to an empty house. Vanessa had left a note saying she was staying with her friend Kelly for a few days, to give us both space to think. Space to think or space to plan her exit strategy? I used the time alone to do more research. Elliot's social media profiles were public, and he loved posting about his lifestyle. Photos of expensive dinners, luxury hotels, weekend trips to Martha's Vineyard. Either he was better at hiding money than his credit reports suggested, or he was living beyond his means. I also looked up Data Vault Industries. They'd been struggling lately, losing clients to bigger competitors. The company needed a major win to stay viable, and according to their press releases, Elliot was leading their expansion efforts. But here's what caught my attention. Data Vault had recently announced a partnership with Chen Industries, Robert Chen's company, the same investor who'd saved my job after Marcus tried to fire me. I had an idea. Friday afternoon, I called Robert Chen's office and asked for a meeting. His assistant said he was busy, but when I mentioned Data Vault Industries, she put me through immediately. Nick, how's the TechFlow project going? Great, actually. But I'm calling about something else. I understand you're working with Data Vault Industries. We're considering a partnership. Why? I might have some information that could be relevant to your decision. There was a pause. What kind of information? The kind that's better discussed in person. We met at a coffee shop downtown. Chen was a sharp businessman who didn't waste time on pleasantries. What do you know about Data Vault? He asked. I know they're desperate for new clients, and I know Elliot Reeves has been making promises he can't keep. How do you know Elliot? He's been sleeping with my wife. Chen's eyebrows went up. That's personal. And it became business when he started using company resources to impress her. Hotel stays, expensive dinners, trips that don't appear on any client itinerary I can find. I showed Chen the photos I'd taken of Elliot and Vanessa at restaurants, along with receipts I'd found in Vanessa's purse that didn't match any legitimate business expenses. This is interesting, Chen said, but it doesn't necessarily affect our deal. What if I told you Elliot's been claiming he has exclusive access to TechFlow's client list, that he's been promising to deliver our accounts to Data Vault as part of your partnership? Chen leaned forward. Has he? He's never contacted me or anyone at TechFlow about switching vendors. But according to my wife, he's told Data Vault's board that the deal is already done. Your wife told you this? My wife tells Elliot everything, and Elliot tells her everything, including things he probably shouldn't share with someone outside the company. Chen was quiet for a long moment. What do you want, Nick? I want the truth to come out. I want Elliot and my wife to face consequences for their actions. And I want to make sure you don't get burned by Elliot's lies. And what do you get out of this? Justice. Chen smiled. I like you, Nick. Let me make some calls. Over the weekend, I stayed at a hotel and let Vanessa think I was giving her space. In reality, I was planning the next phase of my strategy. Mike had been busy too. Through his network of construction workers, bartenders, and small business owners, he'd spread word about Elliot and Vanessa's affair. Not malicious gossip, just facts. Elliot Reeves from Data Vault was cheating with a married woman. Vanessa Griffin was cheating on her husband with her boss. In a city the size of Brookfield Heights, news traveled fast. Monday morning, I went back to work and acted like everything was normal. Around noon, my phone rang. It was Vanessa. Nick, we need to talk. I'm at work. It's important. Can you meet me for lunch? We met at a restaurant downtown. Not the same place where she'd been with Elliot, but close enough. Vanessa looked tired, stressed. Good. People are talking, she said without preamble. About what? About Elliot and me. Someone's been spreading rumors. Are they rumors? She looked away. That's not the point. This could hurt both our careers. Your careers? What about our marriage? Nick, please, can we just focus on damage control right now? I almost laughed. Damage control? Vanessa, you've been cheating on me for months. The damage is already done. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. You chose Elliot over me. Now you're upset that there are consequences. Elliot says we should get lawyers involved. Stop the gossip before it spreads further. Elliot says, what do you say? Vanessa was quiet for a moment. I say I never meant for it to happen this way, but it did happen, and now you want me to help you cover it up? I want you to help me minimize the damage to everyone involved. Everyone, or just you and Elliot? She reached across the table and touched my hand. Nick, I know I hurt you. But we can handle this like adults. We can get divorced quietly, split everything fairly, and move on with our lives. I looked at her hand on mine, the same hand that had been touching Elliot, the same hand that had been lying to me for months. You're right, I said. We should handle this like adults. Relief washed over her face. Thank you. Adults tell the truth, Vanessa. Adults face the consequences of their actions. Adults don't sneak around and lie and betray the people who trust them. I pulled my hand away. So let's be adults. Let's tell everyone the truth about what you and Elliot have been doing. Her face went pale. That's not what I meant. I know exactly what you meant. You want me to help you hide your affair so it doesn't hurt your precious career. But here's the thing, Vanessa. I don't work for you anymore. I stood up and left her sitting there. Tuesday morning, I got a call from Chen. Elliot Reeves contacted me yesterday, he said. He wanted to set up an emergency meeting to discuss irregularities in our partnership discussions. What kind of irregularities? According to Elliot, someone's been spreading false information about Data Vault's business practices. He thinks it might be corporate espionage. I had to admire Elliot's nerve. When caught in a lie, double down and blame someone else. What did you tell him? I told him I'd be happy to meet. This afternoon, actually. Would you like to be there? What do you have in mind? Let's just say Elliot's about to learn that lies have a way of catching up with you. The meeting was at Chen's office downtown. I arrived early and waited in the conference room while Chen briefed his team. At 2 p.m., Elliot walked in wearing another expensive suit and carrying a leather briefcase that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. He stopped short when he saw me. "What's he doing here?" Elliot asked Chen. "Nick's been helping me verify some information about Data Vault," Chen said smoothly. "Please, have a seat." Elliot sat down reluctantly, his eyes never leaving my face. "Now then," Chen continued, "you mentioned irregularities in our partnership discussions?" "Yes," Elliot said, trying to regain his composure. "Someone's been making false claims about my relationship with TechFlow Solutions, spreading rumors about my personal life. It's clearly an attempt to sabotage our deal." "I see. And what false claims are these? Claims that I've been involved with someone at TechFlow? That I've been using company resources inappropriately? That I've been making promises I can't keep about client transfers?" Chen nodded thoughtfully. "Those are serious accusations. Do you have any idea who might be spreading these rumors?" Elliot glanced at me. "I have suspicions." "Well, let's clear this up right now." "Nick, have you been spreading rumors about Elliot?" "No," I said. "I've been telling the truth." Elliot's face flushed red. "The truth according to whom?" "According to the receipts in my wife's purse, according to the photos on her phone, according to the hotel bills charged to your Data Vault corporate card for nights when you were supposedly meeting clients, but were actually meeting Vanessa." "You went through your wife's personal belongings? My wife who's been lying to me for months about where she's been and who she's been with? Yeah, I did some investigating." Chen leaned forward. "Elliot, are these claims accurate? My personal life has nothing to do with our business relationship." "Actually, it does," Chen interrupted. "Because you've been using company resources to fund your personal relationships. And because you've been lying to your board about having access to TechFlow's client list." Elliot looked genuinely confused. "I never said I had access. According to Data Vault's internal emails, which I've now seen, you told your board that the Chen Industries partnership would include automatic client transfers from TechFlow. You said the deal was already arranged through your personal connections. That was a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding that convinced Data Vault's board to approve a partnership based on false premises. A misunderstanding that could be considered fraud." Elliot was sweating now. "Look, maybe I oversold the TechFlow connection, but the partnership is still viable. Based on what? Your track record of honesty, your fiscal responsibility, your professional judgment?" Chen slid a folder across the table. "These are Data Vault's financial records for the past 6 months. Hotel bills, restaurant charges, travel expenses, all on your corporate card, all for personal use. Your affair with Nick's wife cost your company nearly $50,000. Elliot opened the folder, and his face went white. "How did you get these?" "Data Vault's board requested a financial audit before finalizing our partnership. They wanted to make sure their executives were fiscally responsible. Imagine their surprise when they discovered their senior vice president was embezzling company funds to impress his girlfriend. It's not embezzling. What would you call it?" Elliot looked at me with pure hatred. "This is revenge. You're destroying my career because you can't handle losing your wife." "I'm not destroying anything," I said calmly. "I'm just making sure the truth comes out." "The truth? The truth is that Vanessa chose me because I can give her a better life. The truth is that you're a mediocre middle manager who never deserved her in the first place." Chen cleared his throat. "The truth, Elliot, is that you're fired. Data Vault's board voted this morning to terminate your employment and pursue criminal charges for embezzlement." Elliot stared at him. "You can't be serious." "I'm very serious. Security is waiting outside to escort you from the building. Your corporate cards have been canceled, your access has been revoked, and your severance has been forfeited to cover the money you stole." Elliot stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. "This isn't over." "Yes, it is," Chen said. "And Elliot, the partnership with Data Vault is canceled. We don't do business with companies that can't control their executives." Elliot looked at me one last time. "You think you've won? Vanessa will never come back to you. She loves me. Then I guess you two can be broke together," I said. Security escorted Elliot out. Through the conference room window, I watched him being led through the lobby like a common criminal. "Well," Chen said, "that was satisfying." "For me too," I admitted. "What's next?" "Now I deal with my wife." That evening, I went home to find Vanessa waiting in the living room. She'd been crying. Her makeup was smudged and her eyes were red. Elliot called me, she said without looking up. I figured he would. He lost his job. They're pressing charges. I know. You did this. Elliot did this. I just made sure people found out about it. Vanessa finally looked at me, and there was something broken in her expression. Why? Why couldn't you just let us go? Because you didn't just leave, Vanessa. You lied. You cheated. You humiliated me in my own home. You made me feel like I was crazy for suspecting what was right in front of my face. I never meant, yes, you did. Every lie was a choice. Every secret meeting was a choice. Every time you came home and pretended to love me while you were planning your exit strategy, that was a choice. She was crying again. Elliot says we can work through this. He says he'll find another job, that we can start over somewhere else. Elliot's broke, Vanessa. His credit is destroyed from his divorce. He just lost his job, and he's facing criminal charges. What exactly is he going to start over with? He has savings. He has debt. The expensive dinners, the hotel rooms, the weekend trips, all of that was paid for with stolen money. Elliot's been living a fantasy, and he convinced you to live it with him. Vanessa's face crumpled. So what now? You get your revenge and I lose everything? You didn't lose everything, Vanessa. You threw it away. There's a difference. I made a mistake. You made a series of calculated decisions, and now you have to live with the consequences. She looked around our living room, at the photos of our wedding, the furniture we'd picked out together, the life we'd built over 6 years. What about us? Is there any chance we could try to work through this? I thought about that question. Could I forgive her? Could I trust her again? Could we rebuild what she'd destroyed? No, I said, there's not. Because of Elliot. Because of you. Because when you had a choice between honesty and deception, you chose deception. When you had a choice between working on our marriage and running away with someone else, you chose to run. When you had a choice between treating me with respect and treating me like an obstacle, you chose to see me as the problem. Vanessa nodded slowly. So this is it. This is it. What happens now? Now you pack your things. Now we get divorced. Now you figure out how to rebuild your life without Elliot's stolen money and without my support. I don't have anywhere to go. You should have thought of that before you burned down everything you had. She stood up and walked toward the stairs, then stopped. For what it's worth, Nick, I am sorry. I'm sorry I hurt you. I believe you, I said. But sorry doesn't fix anything. Sorry doesn't change anything. Sorry is just what people say when they get caught. Vanessa went upstairs to pack. I sat in the living room, listening to her moving around above me, and realized that for the first time in months, I felt at peace. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. Vanessa moved in with her friend Kelly temporarily, then found a small apartment across town. Elliot was convicted of embezzlement and sentenced to 18 months in prison. Data Vault Industries was bought out by a larger company, and most of their employees were laid off. I kept the house, kept my job, and kept my self-respect. Mike threw a party at O'Malley's to celebrate the divorce being final. Half the neighborhood showed up. People who'd watched Elliot park in my driveway. People who'd seen Vanessa's lies unravel in real time. To Nick, Mike said, raising his beer, for proving that sometimes the good guys do win. I'm not sure I'm the good guy, I said. You're the honest guy. In my book, that's the same thing. Robert Chen stopped by the party, which surprised me. He pulled me aside and made an offer I hadn't expected. How would you feel about running your own division? He asked. What do you mean? Chen Industries is expanding. We need someone to head up our project management division, someone with integrity, someone who knows how to handle difficult situations. You're offering me a job? I'm offering you a career, double your current salary, equity in the company, and the chance to build something from the ground up. I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. When do I start? Monday. 6 months later, I was settling into my new office when my assistant buzzed me. There's someone here to see you, she said. She says her name is Vanessa Griffin. I hadn't seen or spoken to Vanessa since the divorce. I was curious what she wanted. She looked different, tired, older, wearing clothes that were nice but not expensive. The designer dresses and luxury accessories were gone. Hello, Nick. Vanessa, what can I do for you? I heard about your new job. Congratulations. Thank you. I also heard that Elliot got out of prison last week. I hadn't heard that. He called me. He wants to get back together. I waited for her to continue. I told him no. Why are you telling me this? Because I wanted you to know that I finally understand what you meant. About choices and consequences. Okay, Elliot isn't the man I thought he was. When he had money and a job and prospects, it was easy to believe in our future together, but when all of that was gone, he showed you who he really was. He blamed me for everything. Said if I hadn't been so obvious about our affair, none of this would have happened. Said I ruined his life. I almost felt sorry for her, almost. What do you want, Vanessa? I want to apologize. Really apologize. Not just say sorry because I got caught. I want you to know that I understand now what I threw away. Okay. And I want to ask if there's any chance, any possibility that we could try again. I looked at her sitting across from my desk, and I realized something interesting. I didn't feel angry anymore. I didn't feel hurt or betrayed or bitter. I felt nothing at all. No, I said, there's no chance. Because you can't forgive me? Because I don't want to. You made your choice, Vanessa. You chose Elliot over me, excitement over stability, fantasy over reality. And when that choice blew up in your face, you didn't learn to make better choices. You just learned that there are consequences for bad ones. People can change, maybe, but I'm not interested in finding out if you can. I'm not interested in being your safety net or your second choice or your backup plan. I'm not interested in wondering if you're telling the truth or waiting for you to find someone more exciting. So that's it? After 6 years of marriage, you feel nothing? I feel grateful, I said. Grateful that I found out who you really were before I wasted any more of my life. Vanessa started crying. Not the manipulative tears she'd used during our marriage, but real, ugly, desperate tears. I lost everything, Nick. My job, my relationship, my friends. I'm barely making rent on a studio apartment. I work at a call center making $12 an hour. I have nothing left. You have your freedom, I said. You have your independence. You have all the things you thought were more important than our marriage. I was wrong. Yes, you were. But being wrong doesn't entitle you to a second chance. She wiped her eyes and stood up. I guess I should go. I guess you should. She walked to the door, then turned back. Do you ever think about what might have happened if I'd made different choices? No, I said. I think about the future I'm building without you. After she left, I sat in my office looking out at the city skyline. My phone buzzed with a text from Mike. Drinks tonight? I've got news about the Henderson construction project. I smiled and typed back, absolutely. I've got news too. Because that's what life was now. Friends who had my back, work that challenged me, a future that belonged to me alone. No lies, no deception, no wondering if the person I loved was planning to leave me. Vanessa had been right about one thing. I was mediocre. I was mediocre at playing games, mediocre at lying, mediocre at pretending to be someone I wasn't. But I was excellent at telling the truth. I was excellent at keeping my word. I was excellent at building something real instead of living in a fantasy. And in the end, that had been enough to win.